Welcome to the Daily Edge. With us today, Jack Jackintelle, affectionately known to my family as Rocco, COO of Coral Springs Auto Mall. Welcome to the show.
Hey man, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's super cool because I grew up around you, got to see you from an adolescent, be a very successful business person, entrepreneur, and learn your story through my dad. So to get to sit in this seat with you next to me and ask some questions about performance, about success, and about your career is a highlight for me. So thank you for
Thanks,
being
man.
here. No, it's
Who
great.
was the adolescent, me or you?
Yeah, maybe both of us. But let's talk about it for a second. I heard you say you sold your first car in 1980. What?
18, so 80, 83?
83.
No. Yeah.
So you've been in the car business for 40 years.
40 years,
And
yeah.
prior to the show, you explained to me something that you're doing inside of your dealerships that is innovative, is cutting edge, and creates unbelievable wins for you guys. But you've been in the car business for over 40 years. Wow, I got to hear about the change that you've seen throughout that time.
Well, it's there's been no change. I mean, they're really. I'm not joking. It's technology has changed it somewhat.
Sure.
The internet and being able to see, to be able to build a car and change the color and do that type of shit.
Yeah.
And we've tried to change it through buy at home.
Yep.
But consumer behavior doesn't change. I just had a conversation with my father, who's been retired for, 20 years from the car business. And I said, Dad, you could come tomorrow and within an hour be doing the job because the consumer has and will not change. They're reluctant to buy a car at home. They want to come in, they want to see the colors, they want to negotiate. They don't want to pay what you paid.
Yeah.
Manufacturers have tried one price, no negotiation. They've tried and you got people can say, well, Carvana is, but they're such a fractional part. I mean, they're like,
Sure.
1% of and we've tried to change it. Salesman behavior hasn't changed. The dealership environment.
Is that a good or a bad thing in your mind that there's been a lack of
Well,
change?
I haven't had to learn a lot. I think that it's still, people will say today, it's the worst buying experience. That I'd rather go to the dentist than buy a car. And we have really tried to change it because it would be more efficient. Wouldn't have to have even the staff I have, if you were able to click and buy and do those type of things, I wouldn't need, I think today in our big operation, we have 200 plus salespeople.
Wow.
So it's inefficient for us. The other piece that's become super inefficient is we have to answer all the leads. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you didn't have leads.
You only dealt with the people that walked on the floor.
You had cars on the front line. That was a big thing. Yeah. What's on the front line? Is there balloons on the cars? So you marketed from the street.
Yeah.
We don't have front line. That was like a big thing. If you bought a dealership, how much frontage was there?
Wow.
Because that's how you market it.
That's how you got people to come in.
So I have to now staff a whole phone room, because leads come in now. So there's been another layer put into the market that wasn't there. But in all, really.
I think this marketing conversation I think is interesting because as a consumer, right, and as a person who watches, I see a couple of things. The sales training, the car dealer sales trainer, whether it be Grant Cardone or Andy Elliott, and the way they teach sales, but also sales people building their brands on Instagram and on TikTok. Do you see that being successful for people? The people that have a brand that are having fun in the dealership or making fun of themselves at the dealership or doing something to drive their own traffic into the store?
Yeah, there's some people that do it really well. I don't think it's a big swing either way, but there's, I've got salespeople that do it. I can see them outside. A lot of it is more video, using the video to send customers videos.
Yep.
And I tell them, make them fun, don't make them like super salesy. But
yep.
And there's a few that post every day.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's 10%, 15%. We probably should push it more than we do.
So then, since there's been a lack of change, you sold your first car in '83. What are some of the fundamentals to being successful in the car business?
Well, the biggest challenge, that we struggle with is product knowledge. It's just, I'm a car guy and I just got a new car off the lot and I'm just to the radio, right? So that's a because these manufacturers put so much time into having a better this or a better that,
Yeah.
and to be more competitive, and it's just really hard to keep up with all that.
So how do you battle that as like, and I want to give people scope, like, right, you run Coral Springs Auto Mall, right? Can you give people some understanding of the numbers you guys are doing and the breadth of work that you oversee every single month?
So we've got in that auto mall, we got 4 rooftops. We've got about 600 now employees. Probably 60% of them being somewhat sales related. And I think last year we sold. I want to say I'm gonna say on the light side, so I'm not like over exaggerating.
Sure.
But I think around 21,000 cars.
Wow, that is a lot of cars.
And, and that's one. Now Florida's been growing quite a bit, and we're a huge lease market, and we're a really big operation.
So when you're dealing with a workforce that's large, that 60% of that is sales focused or sales oriented in some way, and the biggest challenge is product expertise, how do you help with that? What do you do
I wouldn't even say it's the biggest challenge. I think it's just the biggest miss.
Got it. Okay. Biggest opportunity to grow.
I think it's an opportunity missed because with the internet, and then you're negotiating price a lot of times prior to getting there, or at least getting it within the ballpark. So the biggest thing I see, and I continue to, let's say, try to wake my lead managers up to, is just we've lost sight of selling because there's so much other shit involved, and so much other technology involved, and so the actual close the deal type of thing it's not nearly what it used to be. We used to, when I was 20 years old selling cars, it was all about honing our sales skills.
Right.
All about honing. And it has definitely become a little bit more of an order taker type business,
Which I will tell you, that was so I recently went and got a new car, and that was my experience, is that I don't know, in B2B sales, getting somebody to just have a sales conversation with you is extremely difficult. You got to really work to build rapport, to just get somebody to be in front of you, to even maybe get into that conversation. The fact that I was walking on the lot, knowing that I wanted to buy a car, and all I needed was somebody that would help shepherd that experience for me, and feeling like I was just another number, and that it didn't really matter to them that I was there, or that there was no experience behind it, was mind-boggling for me. I was like, wow, I can't believe that this is the experience that I'm having. And I will say, we ended up buying Lexus at JM in Coconut Creek. And it was the better of the experiences, but still not a great experience. Still not something that I was I felt like I was just that I was dealing with order takers.
They underestimate salespeople, sales managers, anybody in the front end that's involved in it. They completely underestimate who that person is.
Right.
And it's not like we are knocking on doors, from that sense, right? So if you break it down, we joke about it that people would rather go to the dentist than buy a car, right? And that probably survey would still stand. So I try to break it down when I'm teaching, is this person is giving us their information, has come to a car dealership, has given us their email, the ability to call them, and then showed up where they'd rather be at the dentist. So we're not in a mall.
Right.
We're at a destination location. So they really have to be there against the grain. And we're just underestimating that they all are interested in buying a car.
Right.
And credit gets in the way. People get tainted. Salesmen run into 3 people with bad credit.
Wow.
But the bottom line is
that's fair for them, and
the
that's fair to
consumer
give.
that's there doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
They're there because their lease is up. They're there because, a lot of times maybe they want, but it's still, we're underestimating how committed that person already was before they got there.
Right.
It's like, it's a captive audience.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Right, which like to get that, to have that hand delivered to you,
hand delivered.
is so incredible. You think that there'd be like this wild amount of gratitude, but it makes sense to me. I think that you run into some bad customers, you deal with some credit people that aren't able to buy, or you have a few bad experiences, and then you let that taint you. How do you, obviously mindset becomes a major foundation of success then in the game, right? How do you help your salespeople not overcome that negativity and move past that to try to be that person who they should be when a customer shows up?
Well, they just got to sell the car. As soon as they sell the car, it's that, right?
The sales cures all.
Then it puts them back that they haven't forgotten. I mean,
Right.
I've had salespeople that are like, even myself, where I'd run into a cold streak and be like, I forgot how to do this.
Right.
So we always encourage, help him get a car deal in the books, and it's the sales part of it though is something that I'm working really diligently trying to bring back. Where we're spending more time. Again, we got a captive audience.
Right.
They're there, and the typically the reason they don't buy is not even so much the money. It's just this is happening too fast, or
Right.
Customers that come out of service, I wasn't prepared to do this today.
Yeah.
Or to come in and just think, I need to slow down. They don't know why, and I could give you 100-word tracks of how we overcome that, but there's this whole stigma around the business that hasn't changed, and I can't buy the first place I went.
Why not?
I got to shop around, and we all pay the same for the car.
Yep.
If it's a Honda, I pay the same as the guy on the street, and so on. But the consumer behavior is still, that's the piece you have to overcome.
Is that negotiation concept a myth in today's world? Like you just said, every dealership's paying the same for that car, right? So is there still room to negotiate? Is that still possible?
Oh yeah, we negotiate every day.
Yeah.
If we sell, let's say we sold 21,000 cars last year.
Yeah.
There weren't two deals alike.
Really?
There's a lot of moving pieces too. You have a trade-in. You have equity in your trade. You don't have equity in your trade.
Right.
It's a price you saw on the internet versus a price you didn't see on the internet. So,
right.
But I would say every deal, and I think that a lot of deals don't need to be negotiated. I think that we, on our end, bad management or bad processes, we use negotiation to trigger conversation where it's not really necessary.
Right, you brought it up for no reason.
You brought it up to trigger 30 years ago we'd say, get an offer.
Yeah.
Get an offer. It was, so what's it going to take today to earn your business?
Yeah.
Where I think that if that was spun, and a lot of times we were able to do that in certain stores, this is the offer. In other words, we're making that first offer. We're not soliciting an offer.
Right.
Once you take a solicited offer too, then that becomes the key point of the whole deal.
Right.
So if I let you put the first number on the deal, let's say the worksheet, and you're at 18 grand, and that's like 20,000 away.
Right.
And you've come up 10. You're like, I've come up 10. Well,
right.
the number was so irrelevant. But probably the biggest thing that I'm consistently trying to change is we don't need to trigger sales by triggering negotiation. It's like when you go somewhere and you think, did they negotiate in refrigerators? They don't. Like, am I missing something?
Right.
And if they tell you they don't,
they're full of shit.
Then you're like, oh, they don't negotiate.
Right. Right.
And in the car business we do, but not everybody wants to go through that process. And we actually a lot of times force them
to get into that by starting the conversation. And I think it's because I've heard in sales training, and specifically car sales training before, that it's your job to advance the sale, right? And I think that is a bit combative for somebody who's on the lot that maybe that is going to take a long time. Maybe in their mind as the customer, I know I've got 3 months left on my lease, so I know I have time. So in order for me to make a decision today, it would have to be like unbelievably the thing that I want. Do you agree that it's the job of a salesperson to advance the sale no matter what?
Yeah, I think them people are out there, of course, that feel like they have time, but
Right.
there's no reason to have that time. So if you're 60 days out,
Right.
you're out.
Right.
We can, so again, advance and excel, and a lot of times that's just done through. This is the advances we made on your car. There's, now there's 8 airbags versus 6 airbags, and so on. And
creating some of that product knowledge to know why you should get in a new car.
Still creating that urgency. You don't know what's going to happen. We could be short of cars.
Sure.
So, and I still think it boils down to the car.
So you think it's still about the car, not about the person selling the car?
No, I think the person selling the car needs to be mindful.
Right.
That there's always been this kind of cliche around business, like, you need to qualify your customer what he can afford, right? It's always been. And I've never taught that or agreed with that. I've never put that in any. I'm like, people will spend money that they don't have on shit that they want.
Yeah.
So, and I learned that early on when I was selling Toyotas, right? And customer, I want a Corolla, So we showed them 10 Corollas, and they're like, we're going to think about it. And then I followed up. And, we ended up going to another store, and they showed us the Camry. And, we just fell in love with it and said, hell with it. And those type of eye-opening experiences, like, quit qualifying them.
Right.
Try to find them to fall in love, and they'll find a way or justify a way. They'll start talking about, well, if we canceled the cable or, 1 cup of coffee a day or that kind of bullshit. But the truth is, you got to better. And I use some analogies. I'm like, a guy meets a girl, and they're like, right? The money, where they're going to dinner is like, right? But if he's really turned on, he'll borrow his buddy's credit card, right?
1,000%.
And I think that's what happens a lot of times in sales is we don't go for that, that love, or that, love's a big word, but where they are like, I want this car. I see this car in my driveway. Like, this is, and too many times we just show them the same thing or don't. And I try to teach, one of the things I try to teach the most is tell them if every car in the lot was the same price, or let's not ever say every car, because I stated that the Buick customers are going to pick out a Corvette, right? They're going to still say, mindfully in their own range.
Right.
But like, well, I like that one, but it's got the sunroof and so on, and I think it's a little out of my budget. That's the car I want to try to sell you.
Right. Because I know you like that. I know you have a feeling about that car already.
Into making a decision today than I do trying to back into your budget.
That makes a lot of sense.
So put the car in front of them. Like, again, if they're all the same price, let's start there. We can always go the other way.
Yep.
And if I had percentages, I'm going to say we close more deals. You close more deals.
Yeah.
If I show you 10 homes, you and your wife 10 homes, and the one is out of your budget that you set, you really are like, man,
Well, it's funny that you brought up homes and realtors, because I think particularly in realtors, the person matters a lot. The realtor themselves, if they can build a relationship with me, I'll let you sell me a car. I'll let you sell me a house. I'll let you sell me a rental. If I like you, I'll come to you and have you help me. Is there any of that that's an important factor when you're on the lot and having to deal with a lot of customers and stuff like that? Like, how important is it to build the rapport and connectivity person to person first?
Well, I think the best way, the absolute best way to build that, let's say, I don't know, rapport is the right word. But,
I don't know, likability or trust. The best word track,
if I could have and is to empower the customer. Most people are intimidated when they come in there, or intimidated buying a house.
Yep.
And let's say they're an average guy, right? The guy that says okay or whatever, and that's a Honda customer, right? And maybe not a Ferrari customer. Maybe he's a hot shot and he's going to bust your balls more. But they are so intimidated. So I use the house analogy, and because I think they do the same thing in a car dealership. So I'm a realtor. And I'm about to take you to show you 3 properties, you and your wife. And the first thing I'm going to say is, listen, Mark, if we have 3 appointments, if we pull down that street and you don't see your kids playing in that street already before we see the house, just honk the horn and I'll cancel the appointment. I'll whip around.
Right.
But
you put them in the driver's seat.
But if I don't do that,
No pun intended.
then you go in the house, and anybody listening can identify with this, and you look at the cabinets, and you open the bedrooms, and you roll your eyes at your wife like, look at this shit.
Right.
But you don't say shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then this salesperson's calling you back going, hey, you know, that house on 15th Street's still available.
Yep.
And your wife's going, will you just tell them we're not interested? So by empowering you right from Jump Street and just saying, just tell me I hate it.
Yeah.
And we'll bolt. You're going to get in a car, let's say with your wife, and say, I can work with this guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's in. So I teach the same thing.
That's
in
really
sales.
Good.
It's like, look, none of these cars are mine, so you're not going to offend me.
Oh, I love that.
So if I if I go get the keys, and by the time I go get the keys and come back, you just decided it's the wrong color. Don't take the test drive. Right. Just say, this ain't the one.
Yeah.
And then as a salesperson, say, you know what, Mark, thanks.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way we're going to get this together. So you just be honest with me. You won't waste any time.
Yep.
And when they say, you know what, this one's pretty nice, now you've zeroed in on the one that they like the most. And back to the house, your budget's $500,000, and you see one that's 580. All of a sudden, you can justify 580.
Sure.
Well, you know what, you know, it's our dream home,
Yep.
or we can cut this out, or.
Yep.
You know, but you'll find a way.
Yeah.
And I think that we pay way too much attention to the money.
Yeah.
And what people come in. My budget's $300. When I was selling cars super young, people would give me these budgets, and we would negotiate the deal. And the minis back then, the minimum commission was like $50, and I'm like, this guy's a grinder, right? And then the customer would go into the finance office that had to be at $300. And he'd leave it $484, and he'd buy the warranty.
The warranty, the service package, the tires.
And so I woke up real early to that, like, what the hell? And I got a $50 commission, you know.
Yeah.
So and then another piece of that would be, I would tell people, like, there would be some things that would happen that I learned from, like, sales managers back in the 80s would say, well, go ask them if they'd pay half price. You know, I mean, this guy's a clown. Mr. Customer, the car's $20,000. You know, would you pay 10 today? No. So you go back and you tell your manager, and he said, "Oh, what a jack off." You know what I mean? No. Now I realize he hated that car so much.
He wouldn't pay $1 for it, right?
That he wouldn't buy it for half price. Right. And I said, if we had microphones outside and we could hear everything everybody said when they got in their car, 75% of the time we're going to hear, I hated that car.
Right.
So that's why I promote that upfront empowerment.
I love that.
And then you wouldn't hear that, you know, and you'd end up
helping them make a decision as opposed to trying to make a decision for them.
And when they say no, you shake their hand and you say thanks.
That's really nuanced, and that's really, really good. So I've heard you say the word process a billion times. We love process, right? Like from being a football coach to what we teach in B2B sales, like process. What is your streamlined process for somebody who needs to be successful in car sales?
I think got to be on the phones.
On the phones.
That's it's the biggest rejection. You're making truly cold calls. You're making calls to people that either put in leads, which those aren't so cold, but you're also calling people that are, 6 months out on their lease. Mm-hmm. They bought a car 4 years ago. You hadn't heard from them. Those are what we call lost leads. And I think that's the path to all of it, because when I have people that do that and then get good at that, probably the biggest fall off is if they take that, they get good at it, and then we put them in full on sales. They do one of two things. They thrive because they take all them habits that they learned by making 150 outbound calls and texts a day. Yep. Or they're like, I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore, and then they become bad salespeople. But that
discipline
phones,
to the activity,
that rejection, and learning to laugh off that rejection, getting them loose on the phone. We're like, okay, you got a 3-4% of the people you're gonna get on a damn phone, and so there's no rules. There's like, if I tell you a joke and you laugh, or you give me, so we're using things now like because I've just heard some new innovative pitches, and I just had somebody call me, is, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is a sales call.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Smith is, and I think that again is just that transparency, that empowerment. I had a guy call me the other day, and he goes, "I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a sales call.
Right.
It's a cold call,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a way that I could really help you. Will you give me 3 minutes?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll give you 3 minutes."
Yeah.
Now, if he just went into his deal, I'm hanging up on him.
1,000%.
So I started to implement, let's just be as transparent as we can, because that makes the customer I get away from all the salesy type
Yep.
words and word tracks and
Yep.
biggest ever and all that stuff, and
Yep.
and just try to get where, and I think
Be a
that
human.
just started with the connection was
Yeah.
just talk to that customer like it's your sister.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Or you make X a month,
Yeah.
and you can afford this.
Yeah,
Or
right.
whatever it is. And if you can get that loose, I just think that the salesmen that do best for me are loose.
So, and you talked about this earlier. You said, because I had asked you about social media, and you were like, I see some guys doing that. We should probably push it more. We should probably be using video more. Have you thought about innovating that process to include more than the phone, of direct messages and social media and video text messages,
You got some
video
compliance
emails?
issues there.
Do you? Yeah, this is great.
You have definitely compliance issues there.
How so?
Well, direct messages,
Uh-huh.
you'd have posting is different, but direct
Okay.
messages, we have all of our call centers are tied into a do not call list,
Got it.
things like that. So
Yep.
you could get jammed up there. But
Okay.
and then the let's say the volume of people that have following them is maybe not quite enough to make a difference. But I think what it also does is it has them share with other people that they know, right?
Right.
But I did not that long ago have, I don't know, 30 salesmen in a room, and I said, okay, who here is on Instagram and Facebook, right? So
Yeah.
I added up, you have how many people follow you, 1,100 and so on.
Yeah.
And it was 80,000 people, by
Right.
the time I did the room.
Right.
So I said to management, look, we just need to create a post, and they all need to post that post,
Sure.
as opposed to, whether it's whatever it is. It
Yep.
doesn't have to be
Just to be doing
a
something.
newspaper ad, but
Right.
and if we can get them to push everybody to say, you post this every day or every other day,
Sure.
whatever it is, now we're talking 80,000 consumers with our message.
Yep.
The question of post or not post, I think that just still separates good salesmen from bad salesmen. Good salesmen, back in the day, read books.
Yep.
Listen to podcasts.
Yep.
And bad ones didn't.
Right.
They didn't hone their skills. So some that really, do well.
The good ones are willing to
They're
learn
posting,
and grow.
that replaced it prospecting. We used to teach prospecting. You everywhere you go, you hand out a business card, you get the
Yeah.
information. So this is modern day prospecting, and the good ones do it, I'm sure. And I haven't too many to
Modern day
keep up
prospecting.
with it,
That's so good. That's so. I mean, you're speaking our language, right? Like that is phenomenal. This has been a wonderful show. Thank you for sharing all of your
absolutely, man.
knowledge and everything. If there's one thing that has been at the root of your success, one habit, we call it the edge. What's the thing that's given you the edge throughout your career that's continued to lead you to success? What is
There's
it?
no question. It's been, I went into, I've probably taken over 7, 8 businesses in my career, most broke, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they would we would get going, and it would turn around, and again, the business isn't that dramatic, I can bring some motivation and so on, but I'm talking about big turnarounds. And for a long time, I thought, I'm just a lucky son of a bitch, I walk into these deals, man, and they just turn.
Right.
And until years later, I was able to identify, I'm changing the culture
Mm.
in a very actually, framed out way, and I didn't know it. I didn't realize
You didn't realize
the
you
things
had.
that were organic to me were really creating this, this merit-based.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant, a merit-based culture, but I knew that if you two worked for me and you worked here 6 months and you worked here 6 years and you were better, you got the promotion, not him.
Right.
And I didn't realize that all that tied back to a very sophisticated way of creating a culture. So once I realized that, then I was able to refine it and really, really dig into it.
Yeah.
And now that is, I won't and you brought up processes. I won't implement a process in the first 6 months of a company because I'm throwing darts.
Yeah.
So I try to initially create a culture of people that share my vision.
Yeah.
You know, and people say, well, you know, Jake, he's a great guy. I understand. He has an MBA. He has this. He has that. But does he share the vision we share? You know, great guy, family guy. This, but
shared
that
vision.
doesn't make him a fit.
Yeah.
And when I started building cultures around the vision I had, and really being convinced that you're sharing that vision, whether you're educated, not educated, doesn't matter.
Yep.
That's where the success was coming from. It was organic initially, and then once I identified it and I could start to refine it, and then the biggest last piece, if you asked me, is once you, let's compare it to a garden, right?
Sure.
You start the garden, it's the weeds and shit. So that's a business you're taking over, right? So you dig the dirt, you do the heavy lifting, you fertilize it, so on. Now you've got everything kind of lined up. Let's just imagine that's a business, right? That you took over that was full of weeds and nothing really going on. Now you planted tomatoes and you plant all your vegetables and so on, and everything's thriving now. So that's the business. Now that's the business. Let's say a year later, right?
Yeah.
Everything's going on. So now as a leader, and I'm the only one that can do this. My job is just to weed the garden.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
In other words, you know, and no one else can do that. You know, and what happens is you lose good people. I had somebody quitting 6 months ago because the person she was working with she didn't like, but she was quietly leaving.
Yeah.
Because someone didn't weed out that other person.
Yep.
So I actually, for some of my top guys, I went on Amazon and I got them little weeders. And I'm like, you're doing great now, but you're the only one that can remove a weed from this that will eventually take over all your tomatoes.
It's great nugget.
And so weed them out and weed them out quick.
Wow.
And then you see one, pull it out of there. And coworkers can't do that.
Right.
You know, they'll talk about this person when they go home.
The job
and
of
so
a leader.
on. And the last piece of that is, I tell people, look, if you're loyal to the company and you're part of this team, and you end up on heroin, I'm going to get you help.
Yeah.
If you shit on the company,
out
today,
right, going.
And so and that culture works. They see that. You know, we help people have families, problems, money problems, but they'll see somebody that's shitting on the company in one way or another,
Gone.
either hassling an employee or whatever, and gone. You know, and they respect that because you're the only person who can do that. They can't make that person go away, especially if they're, you know, if they're colleagues, right?
1,000%.
They can't make that decision, and they'll go home and tell their wife, I don't know why they keep this guy, and then I can't work with this guy no more. And I mean, so that's, you're not weeding.
Nailed it. I love that. I'm gonna go get a weeder.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start handing that out to all of our leaders.
Everybody can do it though.
Right.
You got to give it to the people that, you know,
that can do it.
Let that be a responsibility.
All right. So to take us out, look directly into that camera.
You got it.
And say, "Let's find our edge."
Let's find our edge.
Let's go.